this is Heather Margolis with Spark Your Channel and Channel Maven. Welcome to this episode of Channel Maven podcast. Today, I'm joined by Cassandra Gholston, the CEO and founder of PartnerTap. PartnerTap, Spark Your Channel. Where do we get these names? We must be in the channel. Right. Cassandra, thanks so much for joining.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Cassandra and I have had some awesome conversations. And of course, as we're in the middle of these great conversations, I'm like, wait, we need to be recording this. So tell us first about you and about PartnerTap, and then let's dive in.
Great. So as you said, I'm the CEO and founder of PartnerTap, and PartnerTap was formed to really help companies drive revenue in their channels. So what we do is we help companies share really critical data. So account, client, opportunity data back and forth securely so that they can uncover new opportunities, better areas to market, co-market together around shared accounts. So that's what we're doing.
That is something I know when I was on the vendor side of the house, that's something that was always so mysterious, right? Who are your partners talking to? How are the conversations going? What stage are they at? But I know our partners don't want their vendors, the IT companies, knowing contact info and where they are. So tell us how you mitigate that risk.
Sure. So even though companies are really afraid to share data, the data sharing is happening at all different levels of the organization. You have sellers sharing data with partners, you have partner managers sharing data with partners, and everybody's doing it on spreadsheets. So we have some enterprise customers like ADP, HPE using our platform, and a lot of the enterprises actually won't even bring in contact information into PartnerTap just to make sure that nothing is ever shared at the contact level. And when you think about it, when companies are sharing data today on spreadsheets, they typically are sharing maybe account name and that's it.
Right.
And so with our platform, we can bring in a lot of data, but you're actually not exposing it to the partner. Really, we need to understand where can we come together on these shared accounts. I don't necessarily need to know all of the information in your CRM. I just need to know where do we meet in the middle. Right. And so on an account by account basis or in certain territories, they can share information and they can then take this data into their CRM where they have great, rich contact data.
That's great. And let's dive into the conversation. I know it's super interesting and data is something that's more important as time goes on, it becomes even more important. But you and I wanted to just chat about PartnerTap aside and Spark Your Channel aside. There's been this huge evolution in the channel where years ago we were talking about moving to the cloud and are you cloud ready? And then the channel programs had to start changing because margins were much slimmer, but an MSP can certainly do an amazing business in a shorter amount of time. That the program started changing. So the tiers, the requirements, the benefits, those all started shifting a little bit. And then, demand gen hasn't really made that change, which is making it even more important for this data to be shared because a partner can say, I'm trying my best, I'm doing everything I can. And on the vendor side, we say, I don't know, you're not nurturing your leads, you're not doing the right things. So data is super important. Let's just talk at a high level how data has also shifted through your career and with the companies you're working with. How has that changed in the last 10 years as well?
Well, now everybody's talking about ecosystems, right? And how we're going to market with multiple partners, right? It's not just one partner inside of a deal. It's, you know, a partner can be running a play for a certain product line, and another partner is running a play in the same account for a different product line, or we're bringing multiple partners together for a play. So when you start talking about multi-partner plays, it's data becomes so important, because which partners should we bring into the play?
Right.
Which teams should we align? And answering those questions is really difficult. And oftentimes who loses out is the customer, right? If we're not bringing the right teams together to the table, we could sometimes lose a customer to our competitor. So being able to look across and understand how things are mapping across even account teams inside of partner companies, and being able to pinpoint who should be account planning around this customer account is so important.
I think too, when you talk about things like demand gen, if I'm the prospect and I get a email or some sort of, you know, templated sequence from a partner talking about ADP, let's say, and then I get an email from ADP talking about the same thing, it's sort of like, who do I go to? Who do I work with? And you know, you want to make sure that your partners feel protected and that there's no channel conflict, but you also want whoever sent that email at ADP from ADP to know that it's covered, that it's not that they're leaving a prospect or money on the table, but that they're good, that they're doing something.
And it seems like internally we can figure those things out. And now with systems that are connecting around the data, we can operate as we do internally around shared customers but you're absolutely right. Those days are over. That is the old way. Your customers should never be receiving multiple emails. We can be so much more targeted around our demand gen, and it's absolutely critical right now. I mean, we are on overkill of demand gen. So how do you stand out? How do you become that, you know, brand that, you know, isn't doing these old plays? It doesn't have to be like that anymore. So you can have two separate companies operating and marketing for the greater good of your prospects and customers, so they don't feel like that, and they open your marketing, right? Because the worst thing is opt out, right? And now they're never going to.
You've lost them again. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny, you know, for 20 years, we've been saying, make your channel an extension of your team. And it feels like with the ability to leverage good data, you can do that. So let's transition a little bit. I want to talk, you know, the pink elephant in the room. We are both female founders. It is not easy in tech, to say the least. And I live in Boulder, where there are tons of female founders, and it's like fashion and natural foods and baby products. But female founders in SaaS are really hard to come by. Let's chat a little bit about where you see opportunities for women in tech right now, and for founders.
I think definitely that there is a lot of opportunity for women founding companies. I mean, we need more B2B enterprise SaaS. You know, we've grown up in tech, and if you see a problem that is near and dear to your heart and you want to go solve it, go build that team, go get it done. You know, you definitely have to hustle harder than, you know, your male counterparts, but that's been our whole career, Heather. It's always hustling harder. You always had to prove more. You know, I was in software sales. I didn't get the give me leads. I always had to prove. I always got territories that weren't the best and made them, everyone was like, oh, wow, I didn't even think that remote territory could even do anything, right?
Right.
So I just think it's the way it is. And the more women that found companies, the more things will change, right? I mean, the gender pay gap, bringing thoughtful products to market. I just, there's a different way to go about things, and, building a different culture from day one. A culture that is accepting of women in the workplace and women that have children. And there's so many developers and talent out there that is really, really skilled, but they're sitting in a job right now where they're making less than their male counterparts. They're doing more work than their male counterparts. They should have been promoted years ago. And I mean, what better way to uplift and really take the market by storm? It's finding those hidden gems and bringing them into our companies, right? So I think, the pandemic has really set us back, but it also has made a lot of opportunities too. So I think we've seen the women leave the workforce in droves, which is really, really sad. But we need to do everything we can to bring women back into the workforce and give them great opportunities. And if you're out there and you're thinking of a business idea, you should completely do it.
Do it.
Oh, do
yeah,
it.
For sure.
Yes.
That's one thing I have noticed. The women founders that I know, they're total badasses. And I think part of it was they weren't being given the opportunities in the workplace. And I was, I had just turned 31 when I started Channel Maven. So I wasn't at a place, well, they didn't know this, but I wasn't at a place where I was like ready to have kids. I had kids later. I was 38 when my first was born. So the parents, like all parents, I think it's been harder for dads in the past year. I think it's been harder for any parent that is dealing with quarantine and what to do with any age kids. And I have a 3 and 5 year old. I know you have an 8 and 11 year old. Like, it's hard no matter what. But I think that women who are thinking about founding something should go do it. And it's hard and it's a slog, but there is something so fulfilling about it as well.
Absolutely. And the number one thing is, going after and getting that revenue, right? So the thing about enterprise SaaS is if you can prove that, your company can bring in revenue, there's going to be funding behind you. Now, I know everybody talks about how hard it is, and that's true, but nobody can say no to women that really are hitting the revenue mark. And so, it's, surround yourself with a great team and go after it and get the revenue, make the sales,
right?
Take care of the customer.
And you and I have done the same. We both raised angel or pre-seed or seed, whatever you want to call it. I think that's harder. I think that coming in with a lower valuation and lower revenue, the investors are looking at that going, I'd rather, if you're raising under $1 million or just over $1 million, they come back and say, I'd rather that you were raising $5 million on a $15 million pre-money valuation than you were raising, $750K on a $4 million valuation. I think that's really hard because, like, women in particular grow their companies in a more pragmatic way. So they're not saying, first year in business, I'm going to do 5 million in revenue. We're much more realistic about what those milestones are going to be. And the investors look at that and go, not really risky or exciting enough for me. So I think that's super challenging. What advice, I know that you've been at PartnerTap 4 years?
4 years.
4 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They say that if a company can make it past 3 years, you're in good shape. So, but what would you say to women if they're thinking about raising money? Do it, don't do it, try to get along as far as you can without it?
I just think it depends on, the type of company you want to build. Not everybody needs to raise money to be successful. That's number one. If you're building a SaaS business, it is expensive. But there are companies and there's female founders that, don't raise and do have successful businesses. And it also depends on, what you want to do. Do you want to go venture? I know a woman, I'm in a CEO group in Seattle, and there's a woman there, and she's never raised venture, and she's got tons of revenue, and she did it by herself. And so it's not impossible, but I go back to that. It's a big hustle, and it's really, she was a venture capitalist. Yeah. And her decision not to raise was because she didn't want to give up ownership. She took on, debt. That's, so there's different ways to build your business. But I think if you do want to raise venture capital, you absolutely can. The bar is going to be higher. I mean, what we hear about women raising Series A, the bar's higher. And, I've heard different revenue run rate, and it's 3 times, 4 times higher than a man. So to me, it's like, if you know those facts before going into it, you got to run harder.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously you're a data geek, if I can call you that. What are some of the things, I always say to potential prospects and clients, whether you do it with us or you do it with somebody else, just make sure you're doing it right. Going back to the IT vendors out there, what are some of the things you want to make sure that they are looking for? Let's say they're not ready for PartnerTap, or PartnerTap is 6 months off. What do you want to make sure are the things that they're tracking, however they're able to do it, however messy that spreadsheet or Google sheet becomes? What do you want to tell them from a data perspective to make sure that they're tracking?
Well, I think any company that, number one, are you even sharing with your partner? That's number one. So, maybe some of these companies aren't sharing yet. And then sometimes we hear, well, I haven't asked my partner to share. So step number one is definitely partners if they're not sharing with you and you haven't asked them, they're sharing with your competition or, a competitive partner. So it's something to think about. I always say, when you're looking to get data, it's about building trust. It is a human to human connection first. So, building out that relationship with your partners is the most important piece. And then it's about getting as much data as you can from the partner. And that all comes down to, how much do you and I trust each other? 100%. So I think as women, we're great at building relationships.
Yes.
It's kind of a natural side.
Yeah, so many, when I was early in my career, so many of the channel account managers and PMMs, whatever you call them, so many of them were men. And now as we interact with our clients, so many of them are women. And it just makes, nothing against men, I think it just sort of sometimes makes sense. We're more nurturing, we're more caregiving, we think about what someone else is thinking about and going through. So that makes great sense. Cassandra, anything else we should have talked about that we didn't?
I don't think so. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, Heather.
It's been great. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. And if you want to find Cassandra, you can find her on LinkedIn. Anywhere else they should be looking for you?
Twitter.
Twitter. I love it. And obviously follow @Channel Maven and @Spark_channel. Thanks again. Talk to you soon.